Ladies and gents, boys and girls, good morning. Wednesday, November the 8th, 2023. Hope you're all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show. Top of the morning to you indeed. Grab your coffee because we are live here on this hump day and we are getting things kicked off in style on the show with our good friend Chris Marler of Saturday Down South, Saturday Football Uncensored. He will join us in the next minute or two, guys. I see John Edward is up with us early this morning. Appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Those also in the Big Cock Club Discord, head over to the TDC Questions channel, the TDC Questions channel. To be sure, your questions are answered. There again, guys, we have got a jam-packed show. Lots to get into here on this Wednesday. Our good friend Chris Marler will kick us off. Also, of course, it is Wednesday. We're talking position unit comp in the game on Saturday against Vandy. We'll do our drive around the SEC, break down every game, lock-in predictions. And, of course, guys, at the end of the show, we got our daily mailbag segment. Leave your questions, leave your comments, leave your voicemails as well, and we will get into all of those to close out today's show. We're live 9 to 11 today. And, again, I appreciate you guys being flexible with your time and appreciate all of you tuning in and chiming in and hanging out with us. That being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and get him in here. He kicks us off on this Wednesday. Our good friend Chris Marler of Saturday Down South, Saturday Football Uncensored. He joins the show. Chris, what's going on, my man? Don't blame me this week for the camera angles now.
Why?
Don't do that.
What is happening? Yeah, I don't like it.
No, so I'm actually going to fill you in, by the way, because a lot of people ask, why are the faces zoomed in?
Yeah.
When I crop the video, I crop it for like TikTok, Instagram Reels. So that's why, if anything, you want to give yourself a little bit more room, I would say.
Hold on, I'm leaving. I'm going to come back. I don't like this at all.
That's the feedback I'd give you. And he really did it. Okay, so Chris did it. All right. I guess he's going to fix the camera. I don't know. I'm not saying his camera looked bad. I was just telling him that is, so you want to give yourself the wide angle so it can be zoomed in, because I take about this much right here and use that for Reels, TikTok, whatever. So I know Chris is a guy, I feel like he comments every single time I post a video of him and saying like, why is the angle this? Why does it look like that? So I like to make sure he knows what's going on. Either way, we are going to at some point talk football with Chris Marler. I don't know when he's coming back, but should be in the next minute or two. Again, guys, good morning. Morning shenanigans. We're already off and running here on this this Wednesday. Here we go. There he is. Okay, I respect it. I respect it, Chris. No, it's dude, it's better. It's good. No, it's good. You're good. You look great, man. You look great. You look great.
Good to be here.
Chris, what's up, man? I love the hat, by the way. I don't know if this is like an irony thing from you all week long, because I saw the chain also that you rock. So what's the deal with the LSU
I just want to remind you what you said to me in Nashville.
Yeah.
Which was, I look up to you. You're the best person in this industry. I want to be you when I grow up. And then you also said Alabama was going to go 9-3. And, I tried to tell all of y'all, this whole idea, Bama's not beating Georgia. Bama's not good enough to win or make the playoff, in my opinion. But this whole mindset of Alabama wasn't going to be good enough to win the West because they lost 2 games by 4 points in the last play of the game on the road. Try to tell all y'all. That being said, I also predicted them to lose like 7 games this year during the week in my previews, because I am so panicked, stricken with fear after that Texas and USF game that I don't know how to operate. So there's that.
Well, I told you last week, the reverse jinx that you had, I've done it a million times. It was a beautiful thing that you did. And you are right. I said a lot of things over the summer. And, it's like, hey, I got a little silly, got some credentials, and was like, why not? We'll pick Bama 9-3. That makes a lot of sense. Let's go ahead and kick this off in style. But no, in all seriousness, man, that I'll tell you this. And this might scream to the way that South Carolina's football season has gone. But, like, I haven't had as much fun, I think, this college football season watching a game as I had watching the LSU-Bama game. It just watching Jaden Daniels, Milroe go blow for blow, shot for shot, the big plays in that football game. And, I mean, you mentioned it, the Texas and the USF games, to see the growth of Bama and specifically Jalen Milroe from that point to now. It was very cool. It was
Yeah.
very, very cool to see. And I mean, I think, Tommy Reeson did a great job of using Jalen Miller. I know our good buddy Jake Crane's talked about that a lot, the way they utilized him in the game plan. Just, I mean, overall, man, obviously you're struck with, you have every right to gloat this week, but thoughts on the ball game as a whole, man.
Yeah.
Also, how many times have you been asked about the Dallas Turner hit this week?
Oh my God. The fact that Dallas Turner is not locked up in Guantanamo Bay and not in prison for playing. You know what pisses me off about Dallas Turner thing is I will be as transparent as possible. I feel like I always try to be. I will say that I'm gonna default to saying that my bias towards my favorite team on this one, because I feel like I'm very objective about Alabama, despite the reverse jinx thing and whatever. I try to be as objective as possible. I'll say that my bias towards a team must be what's clouding my judgment on this one, because if it's targeting, make it targeting. I don't care. I wish they would have called it targeting so LSU could have lost by 10 instead of 14, because the whole mindset of, we just saw this play in slow motion, right? We saw a replay in slow motion of a player that's been chasing around the best quarterback in the country all night. Maybe he did put a little extra oomph on that tackle. I don't know. But like, this whole mindset that he's a dirty player. He needs to be the call on the field was a 15-yard unsportsmanlike penalty. Like, at this point, like, what are you really mad about? You're mad Bama didn't lose. Like, you're mad that, like, you think Bama gets all the calls, when if you just do any sort of Google like research that takes 3 to 8 minutes, you'll find out very quickly that's not true. And like, they have ranked like consistently in the bottom 3 in the SEC in penalties per game over the last 4 or 5 years. And it's a joke. The whole thing's it's so ridiculous when people get to that. Oh, they get all the calls. And people just want to hang on to something that really didn't impact the end of the game. I saw Tim Brando's comment on it where it was like, oh, it effectively ended the game with 11 minutes left, which is unacceptable. Tim Brando is such a bitch, too. Like, I don't care how that sounds. Like, I will be as unprofessional with that guy as possible, because he does nothing to be professional in his responses, especially about Alabama. And the whole comment about how, like, well, LSU is a historically bad defense and effectively ended the game then. Well, I'll tell you what, Timmy, defense is a pretty big part of the game. You could argue that it's 50% of it. If you're mad that the game ended because your defense isn't good enough to, like, they weren't coming back. Anyway, the game itself I thought was great. I thought it was really fun to watch Jaden Daniels go back and forth. I still think he should be the front runner for the Heisman. He's incredible. Like, we talk about how much he glides when he runs. Like, I think in the preseason I called him the most athletic game manager in the country, and he glides all over the field. And all of a sudden you look up and you're like, oh man, it's 3rd and 8. Please don't get a first down. And it's like, not only did he get a first down, but he's somehow 40 yards down the field still running. And he was so impressive to watch. I thought their receivers didn't do a great job for most of the night. Like, they probably could have helped him out a little bit more. But Jaden Daniels is good enough to have willed that team. Like, they put him on his back, and I hate that he got injured late in that game. I don't think it would have made an impact, because that was just one of those games where it was a little bit like an old Pac-12 game. It's like whoever flinches first, whoever has to punt first. LSU's punted 15 times all year. They punted twice in that game. Whoever makes the first costly turnover, and that's effectively what ended up happening.
And for what it's worth, Chris, I did not think it was a dirty hit by Dallas Turner. It was a football play. It was a violent football play. But to your point, I mean, a penalty was called on the play, which 10 years ago, we're celebrating that as just a normal sack, and it's not a big deal. I mean, I get player safety, but to your point, I agree with everything you're saying. Moving to this week, Bama, Kentucky. Is there any shot Bama's on any sort of upset alert after a big win over LSU? Kentucky been really underwhelming this year. Noon kickoff. I mean, this game maybe over the summer had some luster, but I mean, do you view it in that same way at all, or do you think Bama should just roll in this one?
So I'll preface it by saying that, like, the 10.5 points from Vegas scares me. That's surprising. Kentucky is coming into this game very underwhelming. I'm very much a proponent of the whole thing that, like, I'm tired of us talking about Kentucky like the feel-good story of the year, so we need to, like, give them more credit than they deserve. At the same time, like, yeah, I mean, you look at some of the years past, like this is not – I'm not comparing anyone on this team to Johnny Manziel, but this is how Bama lost to Johnny Manziel. Like, you have a very emotional win over a rival against LSU, and then you come out the next week flat. and you go down 20-0 in the first quarter, and that's how you lose to Texas A&M in 2012. There's a path for it. I think the thing that if you're Kentucky, Devin Leary has to have a Steven Garcia game for one. Like he has to come out and I know they're opening up the tailgate parking lot, stuff like that, an hour early. So maybe he goes full Steven Garcia and goes out to the tailgates a little bit early, gets a little buzz going and goes 17 of 20 for 220 yards. You can tell I'm over it, even though it happened 14 years ago. And I don't know the stats off the top of my head. Love Steven. But no, I mean, I think that like is something that there's a path for it. Maybe I think if you're Kentucky, what you have to count on is because even if they get up like early, we've seen Bama make second half adjustments all year. So you would need to win this game. The path would be multiple turnovers in the second half for Bama, maybe resulting in a touchdown, and like the onslaught of bad things happening in the second 30 minutes of that game.
Chris, a win is a win is a win. South Carolina fans will tell you that after the JSU game. Now Vandy comes to town. Gamecocks looking for their 15th straight win over the Commodores, which is a streak that's almost kind of hard to believe. I know that sounds crazy, but as bad as South Carolina's been some years, as good as Vandy's been, James Franklin years, and South Carolina somehow, some way, has not dropped a game to Vandy in all that time. Do they make it 15 in a row? Do you see any issue in this game for the Gamecocks?
You know, the fact that you don't see it as being 15 in a row, and the fact that you don't want to sit there and celebrate, and you want to sit there and tell us that we're stupid for trying to celebrate 15 years in a row over Vandy, that's exactly why you're not on the team. That's exactly why you're not in that locker room. That's exactly why you're not on the roster. Has nothing to do with me projecting all of my insecurities about this job onto the fan base, onto the media. Nothing about that at all. And I'll tell you another thing. That is the reason why you're not on the team. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm 37 years old and out of eligibility. That's not why I'm not on the team. The fuck is he doing? Like, what is he talking about?
You know, I didn't want to start with that, Chris, because I'm like, maybe I'm not making too much of it, but I'm like, I like to talk ball. But to your point, man, it's like, I remember I posted the clip after the game against JSU, those comments, the miserable existence comments, and somebody replied and said, bro, nobody cares except you. And like 2 days later, that post has like 300,000 views. And I'm like,
they're saying it to you?
Yes. I'm like, somebody cares. Somebody cares. So I just, to your point, Marler, it is a week in, week out thing at this point. Like it is so crazy to me.
Whatever fan, and I'm not saying this to be rude to you because you know I love you to death. Whatever fan said that to you, nobody cares but you. That person just doesn't like you, or is just mad about something.
No, that's a fact. I can confirm that's a fact. Yes.
Okay, because this one comment, like I've seen Carolina fans nonstop. Like it was talking about like we're talking on one side of your mouth about how like, well, you know, we need to hold it like him to a higher standard, and like, you know, if he doesn't win this many games, he needs to be gone. Blah blah. And then the next week it's like, well, no, we've got a 10-point win against Jack State, even though Jack State was driving down the field to tie or win that game, and you got a pick six. Okay, like, and to be clear, a lot of people care about it because that would have been the icing on the cake on an embarrassing season. I do think that y'all beat Vandy this week. Another line that surprised me. I think it's down to 13.5, which I don't know where I would take or who I would take with that. Spencer Rattler's been so much better at home versus on the road, but I do think this is a situation where it's like you got to win against Jack State. You know, bury it, move on, 24-hour rule, whatever. Now go beat Vandy, get a conference win, and kind of inch closer to possibly getting bowl eligible, right? Like, I mean, like you were 2-6 last week, you're 3-6 right now, right? Mm-hmm. So you should be 4-6, and Clemson's beatable. Like you can get Clemson. So do what you did last year to a lesser degree, and like figure out a way. Just figure out a way to end this season with a bowl game. I don't care if you had to celebrate Christmas in Shreveport. There's worse things that could happen. You could live in North Korea. I don't know. So, like, go to North Korea actually sounds better than Shreveport, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, like, just get to bowl eligibility. That's what I would say.
And Chris, not looking too far ahead, but to your point, man, I mean, Derude is going to be in town for the Kentucky game and night game. I mean,
yeah.
Might as well chalk that up as a W now, right? I mean, why
Is it
not?
Darude? I thought it was Darude.
Darude. I don't know. I have no idea.
Why did you add an AY to it?
I don't know. I got a little zesty with it. I have no idea.
Love it.
Chris, Tennessee, Mizzou, and Como. Do you have a fancy stat that will tell me why Tennessee -1 is the play, or you going the other way?
I don't have a fancy stat on this one. I will tell you, I would love to like the Bama person in me would love Tennessee to win this game because it would help Bama strength the schedule. The fan in me wants Mizzou to win this game, and it would be so great after what we watched last week for 60 minutes of Mizzou fighting against Georgia, really for like 50 of those minutes, like with a very good chance to win that game. And I never thought I would sit there and look at Mizzou down 27-21 with the ball thinking like, okay, go get a score. Go get a score and see if you can put this back in their court, because like Georgia looked, like they looked beatable during that game. And I think a lot of that credit needs to go to Mizzou. And it was fun for me to watch as a guy that's like kind of like banged the drum for Mizzou for a while. I think was it here that I compared him to Creed and
yes,
and Nickelback. And so like yes. I think that there's I would love to see them go get a win against Tennessee. The line scares me because I think it opened in favor of Mizzou by 3, and now it's like already Tennessee -1. How do you get up off the mat? Like, how do you get back up off the mat? And your Tennessee, here's the thing that we have all come to realize about Tennessee, and I think Tennessee realizes about itself. Joe Milton's not going to beat you for 60 minutes. Mm-hmm. So you better get us some stops in the run game, and you better be able to emotionally get back up. You got a really cool opportunity if you're Mizzou, man. You got 3:30 CBS coming into Como. Like, that's huge. That's huge. You're on national TV. Go get a win. Go get a win. And I think, I don't know the last time Mizzou has been the 3:30 game back-to-back weeks, but having that home game, I think, is a really, really cool experience. So I hope they pull it out, but I just the pessimist in me is doubtful.
Chris to Athens, Georgia, Ole Miss, College game day going to be there. 7:00 kick at Sanford. Can Lane Kiffin give the Dogs enough headaches to maybe pull the upset? I go back and forth on this one. Georgia's going to be my pick, but it feels like Kiffin's kind of due to win one of these big games.
That's a good way to put it, man. He is. They have had some tremendous wins over the past 2 seasons, really 3 seasons if you think about it. But when you start taking a step back, a lot of those wins they've had, they're at home. The game against Kentucky last year, the game against Ole Miss this year, the game against A&M last week, like some of those night games that they've had, like some of those biggest moments they've had have come at home. Will it travel? Will this offense travel? I think the player of the game for Ole Miss, the difference maker in this game is Ulysses Bentley, because I think that they're going to be able to key in on Quinshon. I don't think Trey Harris is going to be able to beat them for 60 minutes, even though he's tremendous. Both those players are tremendous. I think Ulysses Bentley is the guy that can give enough people headaches. So I think if you're Georgia, you can say, all right, we can match and lock down Trey Harris for as much as possible, like we did with Luther Burden last week. We can stuff Quinshon in the run game, hopefully as much as possible, and because he's more of a between the tackles guy, unlike what they were doing with Schrader last week, going like rushing off the edge and repeatedly some of those like, what do you call it, stretch plays. I think Ulysses Bentley is a guy that you can get out on. Like I would almost bet you in the first series, if not the first play of the game, you'll see Lane take a page out of what Florida did in 2020, which is run wheel routes with Ulysses Bentley. We've seen him do it a little bit against Auburn. Try to get him matched up on a linebacker, and they're a little bit thin at linebacker because of the injuries. But here's the thing, man. Lane Kiffin, since he's been a head coach, is 4-23 against teams that finish in the top 25. That is concerning. That is concerning to me. So I don't know if you go on the road at night in Athens. Have you ever been to Athens at night? It is not for the faint at heart or the faint.
I've been there one time, Chris. It was 2007 when Steve Spurgeon and the Gamecocks went in there and won, believe it or not.
I was there for that.
Yeah.
I was so drunk walking into that stadium. It was a 5:30 start. It was a 5:30 start, and I was so drunk walking into the stadium. I remember reaching in my pocket to give my ticket to the person at the attendant, and I pulled out a handful of pretzels. I have no fucking clue what was going on in my life at that time, but it was a tough scene for sure.
Who knew? You and I may have been within arm's reach of each other on that game. We didn't even know it. Chris Marler, Saturday Down South, Saturday Football Uncensored. Chris, last thing, and I'll get you out of here. When does college basketball season begin for you? Is it like you're locked in from the jump? Do you kind of put it to the side until football's over? do you care until March? Like, and obviously Bama's good too, so that helps. But realistically, like, when does college basketball start registering?
Well, man, I hit a 3-team parlay last night on it, so it kind of started there.
Okay, we're rolling. We're off and running then. All right.
No, I mean, I'll watch the games. I'll watch, like, but like it's admittedly hard for me to get invested into December and November college basketball. In the same way, it's admittedly hard for me to get into like the NFL in October, because it's like I'll watch the games, but I'm not going to get emotionally invested into something that doesn't matter, because as long as you start winning in January and February and March, like that's all that matters. So like, I'll watch the games, like I said. It'll be fun during like Thanksgiving and like when there's a little bit of downtime, or like over Christmas break, like when there's like some downtime with bowl games. But other than that, no, like I'm not going to get emotionally invested when Bama's playing, no offense, Jack State, for lack of a better example. There you go.
Not going to get emotionally invested unless there's a 3-team parlay to be won. So
I have done pretty well so far. I'll say that.
Chris, I appreciate you, man. Hey, you're busy today. You deserve it, my friend. You do great work. Thank you so much for taking the time. We'll do it again next week.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you then.
Yeah, man. Sounds good. Great stuff, guys. Chris Marler, Saturday Down South, Saturday Football Uncensored. Grateful to call him a friend and a friend of this show as well. That being said, we're going to jump into a quick break, guys. On the other side, we'll compare the rosters of South Carolina and Vanderbilt in our position unit comparison. Does Vandy have the roster to come into Willie B and pull the upset, or does South Carolina just have too much and make it 15 in a row? We'll talk all that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge, where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
That's your Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Wednesday, November the 8th, 2023. I want to say thank you to you guys for being flexible with your schedules. Obviously, we are live much earlier than normal. Got some things we are taking care of doing this afternoon. So, bumped up the show 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern. And really, truly, genuinely, guys, appreciate you all always being willing to roll with the punches, to rock and roll with us, and tune in even in the early parts of the morning. So again, thank you all so much for the continued love and support, guys. Truly means the world. And really excited for kickoff this weekend. Tons of great games, man. Ole Miss and Georgia, Tennessee, Mizzou. Of course, Gamecocks and Vanderbilt, a noon kick at Williams-Brice Stadium. And lots to discuss, a lot to get into. Want to say thank you yet again to our good friend Chris Marler of Saturday Down South, Saturday Football Uncensored, for taking the time. Chris is very busy today, as is deserved for what he does, all of his great work, talking college football, breaking everything down. And again, we appreciate Chris making time on a weekly basis. And like Chris Marler said, I think it's an interesting question. Our good buddy J.D. Piquel posted this on his timeline, that college basketball season doesn't begin until March, which I wouldn't totally agree with that. I get where he's coming from. But, college basketball season, it's hard to get really all that invested until football is over, especially when you're talking about non-conference games against teams, admittedly, guys like USC Upstate. Heck, though, you get some crazy results. Vandy last night losing to the Presbyterian Blue Hose. I know there's a lot of PC alumni out there who were really excited to see that result. So you never know what might happen early season, but football is king, and football is typically what takes center stage until things heat up later in the season. Either way, guys, of course, we're going to be talking college basketball, watching college basketball, hanging out, having a good time. That being said, though, guys, in the meantime, South Carolina looking for their 15th straight win against the Vanderbilt Commodores on Saturday when they come to town. Who has the advantage when the Gamecocks and Doors do battle at Willie B? It's our weekly position unit comparison as we go down the list and compare and just see, where does South Carolina have the advantage, where they may be deficient, where are the best matchups within the matchups in this game. So without further ado, guys, we will start at the quarterback position. It's been somewhat of a carousel for Vandy this season. A.J. Swan, Ken Seals, both have made contributions for the Doors under center this season, which has been, it's been somewhat of a surprise. And I don't necessarily think that you've seen the revolving door at quarterback because, Ken Seals has been terrible or A.J. Swan has been terrible. I just think you have to look at, guys, the supporting cast and the help or little help they've had around them. And so obviously, guys, when all else fails, what do? Right? Well, let's change the quarterback, see if we can spark something. A.J. Swan has thrown for 1,290 yards, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Meanwhile, Ken Seals has gone for 1,018 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So neither guy has been great, I would say, but neither guy has been terrible either. They've both just kind of been okay, especially when you consider what they have to work with. On the other side, there's Spencer Rattler, who at home especially, guys, has been incredible. Gamecocks get the easy nod here at the quarterback position. Spencer Rattler, I expect more of the same from him at the home field, under the home lights, if you will. And Vandy, who knows, guys, what they've got at the quarterback position. Also, Walter Taylor has played for them even this season. So I don't know if Vandy really knows what they're doing at the quarterback position. Meanwhile, South Carolina solidified there. They get the easy nod at QB. At the running back position, this is one, guys, I can probably count on one hand how many times I've given South Carolina the nod here. I don't even know if I have all year, actually, to be honest with you. I'm giving the Gamecocks the nod at running back this week, believe it or not. You look at what Vandy has. Cedric Alexander is their leading ball carrier. 74 carries, 291 yards at this point, 3.9 yards per carry, and 4 touchdowns. Patrick Smith, RB2 for them, and he is their second leading rusher. 66 carries, 277 yards, 4.2 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. But there's nothing really there, guys, in my opinion, that jumps off the page to you. And you look at what South Carolina has in Mario Anderson, their number 2 guy in Juju McDowell. I think South Carolina's 1-2 punch is actually better and more explosive than what Vandy features. So for the first time in a while, maybe all season, guys, I'd have to go back and look at it, I am giving the Gamecocks the nod at the running back position. I like Anderson more than Alexander. And again, I like the depth overall and the 1-2 punch that South Carolina will feature more than what Vandy will feature. So give the Gamecocks the nod at the running back position. We move to wide receiver. And this is probably where we're going to have our first bit of disagreement, if you will. Because you look at South Carolina, it's Xavier Legette, 217 yards last weekend, right, what he's doing. But my biggest thing is this, guys. Who's after him? At this point, who is after Xavier Legette? There's bodies, there's names, but are there real week in, week out contributors? Are there contributors that you can depend on? I don't think you can say the answer is yes to that question. I mean, Nick Harbor's got potential. Amarian Brown's got some potential. He can do some things. Omega Blake has unfortunately kind of become a non-factor. Luke Doty's become a complete non-factor. Eddie Lewis hasn't really been the guy we thought he'd be coming from Memphis. Really, the second option in the passing game for Spencer Rattler has been Trey Knox. It's been Joshua Simon. It's been the tight end position. So Xavier Legette, one of the best, if not the best, in the SEC, guys. That obviously gives this room a huge boost. But then you look at Vanderbilt, guys, and you really, for everything Vanderbilt is not, for all of the ways that their roster is lacking and that their roster is deficient, you really got to put some respect on the duo that is Will Sheppard and Jaden McGowan leading the way. Will Sheppard especially, guys. 44 catches, 634 yards. This man has 8 touchdowns to his credit. Will Sheppard has been fantastic for them, truly. And he's a big-time weapon. He's not just Vandy good. Like, he's really, really good. Jaden McGowan right behind him, 35 for 380. Does not have a touchdown catch, but still very efficient, effective week in, week out. London Humphreys also behind them, 16 for 380, 4 touchdowns to his credit. Junior Sherrill, 15 for 236, 2 touchdowns to his credit. So I think Vandy, I like the duo of Sheppard and McGowan. I think they're deeper. They don't have a player like Xavier Legette. I'm going with a push here. I'm not going to give Vandy the nod, but I'm going to go with the push, and I think the push is well-deserved. Again, I love the duo of Sheppard and McGowan. If Vandy's going to stay in this game, if they're going to give South Carolina some fits, it's going to be because of those two guys. So I'm going push at wide receiver. Xavier Legette on the South Carolina side leading the way, kind of doing it all by himself at that position. Vandy's got a couple of dudes led by Sheppard and McGowan that I really like and I think will flash on Saturday. To the tight end position we go, guys. I give South Carolina the nod. Vandy doesn't use the tight end a whole lot in this offense. Justin Ball is their leader, 12 catches, 104, a touchdown. Their second leading. Logan Kyle, 9 for 83. Meanwhile, you've got the duo of Trey Knox, Joshua Simon. Trey Knox has become, guys, a real weapon in this Gamecocks offense. I know that he's questionable this week. We'll see if he goes. But Joshua Simon's been really, really good to his credit. Even if it was just Joshua Simon that we were comparing. Again, Vanderbilt just doesn't really feature their tight ends a whole lot. So I do give the Gamecocks the nod at the tight end spot going into this game. We moved to offensive line. And this is one, guys, last week, I believe I gave Jacksonville State the nod on the offensive line. Some people were upset at that. Others understood. And you look at this game, guys, South Carolina, I mean, you look at the numbers, guys, it's crazy, right? The Gamecocks have surrendered 37 sacks to this point. 37 sacks. Like, that's a disgusting number, first off. It's almost hard to believe. 37 sacks. The Gamecocks haven't ran it much better. One of the worst in the SEC. But you know who's behind them, guys? You know who's behind them? The Vanderbilt Commodores, who are running the football for just 93 yards per game. And the rushing yardage in SEC play is even worse. They have not allowed opponents to get to the quarterback quite as much. Only 24 sacks, I believe it is, allowed. I'm going with a push at the offensive line, believe it or not, because I think South Carolina runs it a little bit more effectively than Vandy does. I think Vandy protects the quarterback slightly better. You factor all that in, I think it's about even. Again, these are two of the worst offensive lines, probably the two worst offensive lines in the SEC. They are very similar to each other, unfortunately, which says a lot about what the state of the Gamecocks offensive line, I should say that. But I am going push at the offensive line. I think it's going to be a pair of porous groups taking the field on Saturday, which we'll see which one holds up more effectively. Guys, to the defensive side of the football we go. The defensive line specifically. You know, South Carolina, to be fair, has done a much better job stopping the run this season, right? Done a much better job. Now, is a lot of that because teams are throwing the football all over them? Sure, that's probably part of it. We saw Jacksonville State literally last week run for over 200 yards in that football game. But guys, you look at the numbers, you look at Vandy. 20 sacks to their credit. Okay, more than South Carolina. But they are allowing 180 yards per game on the ground. Guys, this is a bad Vanderbilt defense. I'm going to go ahead and spoil it for you. This is a bad Vandy across the board. They don't do much of anything all that well. I'm going to give South Carolina the nod when it comes to the defensive line. The Gamecocks D-line, it's a lesser of two evils thing. It's not that South Carolina's D-line's head and shoulders above and Vandy's D-line doesn't stack up, but their defensive front hadn't stopped anybody, man. They don't get after the quarterback a ton. Again, 20 sacks is okay. I mean, South Carolina, guys, is worse. I think the Gamecocks only have like 17 sacks to their credit this year, but they're doing a much better job, to their credit, stopping the run. I mean, Vandy, you can say, sure, teams have passed on South Carolina, but teams have passed on Vandy too. And they still can't stop the run. So I'm going to go defensive line. I'm going to go South Carolina here, give them the favor, but again, a slight edge over Vandy. To the linebacker position we go. Guys, South Carolina's linebacker play last week was horrific. I mean, I know the whole feel-good thing with Stone Blanton, and it's so funny how people wanted to like come at me and come at others for criticisms during the game. Look, that'll show you the pick six. That'll show you. No, two things can be true. Stone Blanton, that was a great moment for him, man. I'm so happy he got that pick six, and that's great. You won the ball game. He also was abysmal. I mean, he was terrible. He was flat out god-awful. I saw the back of 52's jersey all day long. And I mean, to my credit, I didn't call him out by name on the timeline, but I said 52's seen better days. And I stand by that. Both can be true, right? The Gamecocks linebacker play was terrible. Debo Williams missing tackles left and right. Debo Williams plays with heart. That's the best thing you can say about Debo Williams. He's a leader on that football team. That's a great thing too. But South Carolina, I mean, linebackers just an eyesore yet again. And you look at Vandy, their best players on their defense are at the linebacker position. Langston Patterson, 59 total tackles. He leads their team, a sack. He's been really good for them this year. 1 forced fumble to his credit. C.J. Taylor, his counterpart, 52 total tackles, 3 sacks to his credit. A couple tackles for loss as well. Ethan Barr at the linebacker position, 45 tackles, a sack to his credit also. Their linebacker group, guys, I will say, Vandy's linebacker group is solid. It is the best unit on their defense, and I'm giving Vanderbilt the nod at the linebacker position. The Gamecocks have got to solve linebacker through recruiting and through the portal also. Like this to me, I look at this is a portal need for South Carolina. There's no question. This is a portal need for the Gamecocks. They've got to shore this up through the transfer portal because it's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. I mean, and again, after that performance I watched last week, what I watched Stone Blanton do and Debo Williams do in I can't give them a nod at all, guys. I have no confidence in the Gamecocks linebackers coming in this football game. So Vanderbilt gets the nod there. At defensive back, this really is the battle of mid, man. This game between South Carolina and Vandy. It is the battle of mid in so many ways. And this is yet again another example. 2 of the worst secondaries in the SEC. I don't have the stats pulled up in front of me, but I'd be willing to bet you they're the 2 worst. They're the 2 worst. Vanderbilt has not done a great job stopping anyone through the air, allowing over 255 yards per game passing. Haven't been able to stop anybody, man. I mean, again, Vandy's defense, they don't do much of anything well. Now, they've got some talent in the back end. I'm not going to say they don't have some talent. Jalen Mahoney's a good player. DeRicky Wright at safety's a good player, right? Savion Riley, solid. Outside of that, it's kind of a mixed bag of what you're getting. Meanwhile, of course, guys, the Gamecocks, Marcellus Dial and Dunn Fortune were abysmal last week. Nicky Manwari and DQ Smith have been underwhelming. The nickel spot's been a disaster. I will say, though, I don't feel confident giving either side the nod here. Because you know what? Neither side deserves it. Flat out. Neither side deserves it. Neither side deserves the recognition of being superior to the other. So I'm going push in the secondary. I'm going push at defensive back. Both of these units are terrible. That's it. That's it. To kicker and punter we go. I give South Carolina the nod here, guys. Vanderbilt's got a fantastic punter. They really do. But they have been not all that great kicking field goals. Jacob Borsila is their kicker. He struggled somewhat. 6 of 9 this year, 2 of 4 from 40 to 49. Again, they got one of the best punters in college football, but, I do think you look at the punters, I would say those 2 were even. I would take Mitch Jeter over what they've got at the kicker spot. I am going to give South Carolina the nod at kicker and punter. And finally, guys, to coaching we go. This caused a stir last week. Coaching caused a stir when I gave Jacksonville State the nod, right? Rich Rodriguez and staff. People saying, Chris, no way, man. This was a decade ago. I could see it. It's always funny. On a side note, it's always funny how I'll do these. And I'll have one that, I give the nod to the other side and people just lose their minds. And then the game plays out, especially when it's coaching. The game plays out and people are like, oh, my, all the criticisms and people are upset. And I'm like, I told you. Like, that being said, though, I do give South Carolina the nod when it comes to coaching. I do. And I like Clark Lee a lot. I'm a Clark Lee guy. And Clark Lee's in a really tough situation, man, trying to turn Vanderbilt football around and get them to respectability, right? Get them to, I think the goal for Vandy football, if you can, over the course of a decade, 50% of those years reach a bowl game, maybe 70%, that might be asking too much. If you can reach a bowl game at Vanderbilt, like you are doing really well, right? And he's facing an uphill battle from facilities, which they are upgrading, but NIL from folks I've talked to. I mean, there's just a lot of things they're dealing with. But I am going to give Shane Beamer and company the nod. It's been a tough year, guys. Shane Beamer has gone viral for all the wrong reasons week after week after week. But I still believe in Shane Beamer more than I believe in Clark Lee. And I believe in this Gamecocks coaching staff more than I believe in what Vanderbilt's got on their sideline, right? I will say Clark Lee, I think, has actually done a pretty damn good job coaching against the Gamecocks. Because, guys, you think about it. In 2 matchups, South Carolina has been the better football team, like the more superior, talented football team. But all that Shane Beamer's got over Clark Lee is a 1-point win and an 11-point win. It has not been the blowouts that many were expecting. So I'll give Clark Lee credit there in this series, but I do give Shane Beamer, that South Carolina coaching staff, the nod. And as you can tell, the Gamecocks, as they look to make it 15 in a row against Vandy, should have a great opportunity to do so. Guys, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into a quick break. On the other side, we're going to do our weekly drive around the SEC. I'll give my full thoughts and predictions for each and every single one of the SEC games this weekend. Guys, all that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge, where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars. And there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars. Or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose, while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho, Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome back here on this Wednesday, November the 8th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. The chatter has already begun when it comes to the position unit comparisons. And I'll just say this again, guys. If you're upset about the wide receiver position, Xavier Legette's a great player. Nick Harbor's got a lot of talent, but Nick Harbor isn't a week in, week out contributor yet. And I would highly encourage you to not let the Vanderbilt logo, excuse me, guys, make you not realize that Will Shepherd and Jaden McGowan are really, really, really good players for the Commodores. So do some research, do some homework, and get back to me. Either way, guys, again, we are rocking and rolling here on this Wednesday morning, guys. Continue to leave us your questions, your comments, your voicemails. We'll get into our daily mailbag segment at the end of the show. Probably today, probably about last 45 minutes, last 40 minutes or so. We'll dive into your questions, some random things also to discuss. The college ball playoff rankings came out last night. South Carolina basketball getting ready to take on Virginia Tech on Friday in the tournament in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I'd imagine there'll be a pretty strong Gamecock crowd there to witness that game. Yeah, outside of that, guys, lots going on. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. With that being said, it is time for our weekly drive around the SEC, a jam-packed Week 11 slate, guys. Tons of exciting football as things heat up, right? The bowl picture starting to clear up a little bit, right? We're starting to figure out, okay, who's going to be going where. You got some teams like South Carolina that are fighting for their bowl lives, if you will. The college football playoff picture is starting to clear as well. Week 11, going to be a lot of fun, guys. In the SEC, we start in Lexington, Kentucky. The Kentucky Wildcats taking on the 8th-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. This is a noon kick on ESPN. This is a game, guys, that is very intriguing. I'm not sure that it's intriguing for all the reasons we thought it would be over the summer. A game in which, guys, I think you looked at this one, at least some of us did, and said, okay, this could be a potential trap spot for Alabama. This could be one of those big upsets throughout the college football season. And I think it's always fascinating, right? Some worry about a team bouncing back from a big defeat, right? How do they pick themselves up off the floor to allow that team to beat you twice? Handling prosperity is a big thing too, though. Now, Alabama, listen, they've done a great job of it. Nick Saban, he doesn't allow complacency in his program. But I wonder, after that game against LSU, an emotional game, right? You got up for it. I mean, the night game in Tuscaloosa and a huge emotional win. Now you go on the road, sleepy noon game against an unranked Kentucky, an underwhelming Kentucky, right? Does Alabama show up and handle their business? Because Alabama should win the football game. It's going to take a special outing from Devin Leary, Dane Key, Barrion Brown, right? Ray Davis. That entire group going to take a really, really special day. Does Alabama continue to follow the script they had against LSU, the game plan, with allowing Jalen Milroe, not asking him to do something he's not comfortable in doing, which is throw the football 40, 50 times. Let him use his legs. Let him run the football 15 to 20 times, right? Had 4 rushing touchdowns in that game against LSU. The spread in this one, a little bit lower than folks would expect. What, 10.5? And I agree with what Chris Marler said in our previous segment. That is a strange number. It's a strange number because you look at that, it's a sucker bet, guys. I mean, that's what we'd call a sucker bet. Like, people are going to look at that and say, oh, Bama's going to crush Kentucky. But I don't know. College football's got a funny way of surprising us. So I do think Kentucky can have some success against that susceptible offensive line of Alabama. I think Kentucky's a much better defense than LSU. Again, it's going to take a really, really special outing from Devin Leary. I don't think he's going to be able to do enough. If this game was at night in Lexington, maybe I'd be drinking more Big Blue Nation Kool-Aid in regards to the upset. But I just don't think you can look at these two teams right now, especially with how underwhelming Kentucky has been, and say, oh, yeah, they're the upset pick for sure. So I'm going to go Alabama. Do they cover 10.5? I don't know. I can't confidently say they will, but Alabama, behind a strong running game, I think they'll continue to run Jalen Milroe. I think their front seven is going to make life really, really difficult on Ray Davis and Devin Leary. And I do think Alabama will get the win in Lexington. To Columbia, Missouri. This is a fun one, guys. The 14th ranked Missouri Tigers taking on the 13th ranked Tennessee Volunteers. This is a CBS 3:30 kickoff. And if you were paying attention, guys, to my gambling picks, I've got the over in this ballgame, the over 59 between Mizzou and Tennessee. This is one I really went back and forth on, guys, because Tennessee, they're such a different team away from Neyland. They're such a different team. And again, we just talked about, right, handling prosperity versus picking yourself off the floor. And Missouri coming off a really physical game against the Georgia Bulldogs. Meanwhile, you got Tennessee, Joe Milton coming in. They got the big one over UConn. Who cares, right? Tennessee's running game. That's what I want to see get going in this game. Tennessee's running game with Jalen Wright, Jabari Small, right, what have you. Joe Milton's got to have some help. I don't think he's going to go out there and just win this game by himself, obviously. It's been an interesting season for Milton. I mean, I think Milton's been okay. He has not been even remotely close to what Hendon Hooker was. He's been okay, though, which is fine. I mean, I think that's all we were expecting. I had Missouri guys over the summer winning this game, and I considered it a massive upset. That at that point it was. I think Mizzou was looked at, okay, they're going to be about a 6-6 team, whatever. Nobody saw them being a top 15 team when this game rolled around. This is just truly a coin flip. I mean, that's like, this is a coin. Like the team that I don't pick is going to call me stupid in this one, and that's totally fine. I get that. I'm going to ride with Tennessee in this one, though. I'm going to ride with Tennessee. This is a big spot for Mizzou. 3:30 kick. I mean, a great opportunity. Their program is like on full display right now. Can kind of show the world, hey, Mizzou is for real. And I don't think they necessarily have to prove that, but I mean, there's nothing that solidifies that like winning, right? So, but I think Tennessee's got a little bit more than Mizzou. I think this is a high-scoring game, back-and-forth game. I think Joe Milton and that offense make just one more play than Brady Cook and company. I think they get the job done in Como. Give me Tennessee in this game. Really close, high-scoring, fun. Vols get it done on the road. Guys, to Fayetteville, Arkansas finally is off the schneid. Got the win in Gainesville. They take on the Auburn Tigers. This is a 4 o'clock kick on SEC Network. This is, again, another one of those tough 50-50 SEC games here. How does Arkansas follow up, specifically offensively? How do they follow up that performance against Florida? Because that was a really inspiring performance. That was a really inspiring performance that we saw them have in the Swamp. You know, it's funny what happens when you cut off a deficient coordinator and you just kind of let your talent shine. And KJ Jefferson, Rocket Sanders, they did that. Getting rid of Dan Enos obviously was the right move. And then you got Auburn coming off the win over Vanderbilt. Do they have the offensive firepower? I think the defense is going to hold their own. Do they have the offensive firepower with Peyton Thorne and Robbie Ashford, and, the running game there? Do they have enough to go into Fayetteville and win this football game. And I think they do, guys. I've got Auburn in this game going into Fayetteville, getting the win. Such an emotional high for Arkansas to pull off the upset. I think Auburn gets it done, though. I think Auburn's just got a little bit more. I think they use the running game in this football game to keep Arkansas's offense off the field. I'm not convinced Arkansas can follow that up, right? Florida's a bit of a team that's in disarray or dysfunctional, if you will. And I think the Tigers, I think Hugh Freeze and company do just enough to get the job done and get a win over the Hogs. To Athens, Georgia, we go. What a fun one this is, man. College game day in town. The second-ranked Georgia Bulldogs taking on the 9th-ranked Ole Miss Rebels. This game, 7 o'clock kick on ESPN. This game is really interesting, guys, because it kind of feels like Georgia, give them all the credit in the world. And I have on a week-in, week-out basis. They have navigated their schedule, which has been favorable, of course, but, winning in the SEC is not easy. As Shane Beamer loves to point out, it's not easy to win, right? But you watch Georgia and these first halves they have, and to me, it's like you're playing with fire to a degree if you're Georgia, and at some point it's gonna burn you, right? At some point it's gonna burn you. And this is the point in the season. I mean, Missouri, guys, is a great test, for sure. But this is the point in the season. These next 2 weeks with Ole Miss and Tennessee, we're going to really, really learn about Georgia. And Lane Kiffin is a head coach that can give you headaches. I mean, can give you endless headaches. And doesn't it feel like we hear a lot about Lane Kiffin in big games, can't win the big game on the road especially. Feels like he's due. And it feels like Georgia is due to get burnt, playing with fire, if you will. The night game home atmosphere, I don't get people that talk about Sanford Stadium's not a good atmosphere for college football. I disagree wholeheartedly. I think it's a really good atmosphere. I think Sanford gets as loud as any stadium in the SEC. Carson Beck's been phenomenal this year. They have been able to make a living without Brock Bowers using Ladd McConkey, who is that great wide receiver room. Ole Miss defensively, they're able to get after the quarterback, so that could be an X factor in this football game. Are they able to disrupt Carson Beck, make him uncomfortable? And then it comes down to Jackson Dart and Quinshon Judkins and the rest of those offensive weapons. So I want to go Ole Miss. I want to go against the grain and pick Ole Miss because nobody's going to be picking against Georgia, guys. Nobody is, right? Till Georgia loses, it's like, how can you? But I think Lane Kiffin and company, they are going to give Georgia every bit of fits and headaches that you can imagine. I'm going to pick Georgia in the game. I'm going with Georgia, but there's a part of me that really wants to go with Ole Miss. I just don't know if Ole Miss is there yet. Georgia's so much more talented. They're so much more talented than everybody, right? So I don't think Ole Miss is quite there yet, but man, I think Lane Kiffin, I think he's going to have some tricks up his sleeve, and do not be surprised in the slightest when, not if, but when this is a tight ball game in the fourth quarter. Don't be surprised, guys. To Death Valley, Baton Rouge we go. LSU taking on the Florida Gators. 7:30 kick on SEC Network. It's interesting how this has become sort of a rivalry for whatever reason. And this is kind of a recency thing that it's become a rivalry. It somewhat is. LSU and Florida, it is a rivalry. Of course, LSU guys coming off that really disappointing game in Tuscaloosa. Florida coming off their own disappointment against Arkansas. The thing that makes me hesitate when I look at this game, talk about this game, is that for Florida, it's been up and down, up and down, up and down. So you'd expect after a down, they're going to come back up. I don't know that you can follow that logic this week because LSU is waiting. And, How does LSU respond? It's going to be interesting. How does LSU respond after, guys? I mean, their goals of playing in the SEC championship, obviously going to the college ball playoff, they're shot. They're probably donezo. They're history. Like, I don't see a scenario in which, I mean, who knows? Maybe Alabama gets upset, but more than likely, LSU is cooked. And that's a tough reality. That's a tough pill to swallow, right? What's the motivation factor like for LSU? Hey, the good news is this. You got a sold out, I'd imagine, sold out Death Valley at night. We all know, guys, LSU under the lights, they're a different beast at home under the lights. Billy Napier in Florida. This is a huge game for them, man. I mean, fighting for bowl eligibility. They're running out of chances to get there. I don't think they'll be able to do it against LSU, guys. I think Florida is somewhat in who knows what they are. It's somewhat of disarray right now. They can't even get 11 guys out there on special teams. I mean, it's just like it's a bit of a mess. So LSU at home under the lights. I wonder what the motive. How excited is LSU to play this football game? But I'm going to take the Bayou Bengals at home at night every single time. Finally, Texas A&M taking on Mississippi State. This game in College Station, guys, a 7:30 kickoff on ESPN2. Not a lot to say about this game, guys. I mean, Mississippi State, a hapless Bulldogs team. I mean, Texas A&M, don't trust them with anything, but State's just terrible. There's just no other way. They're terrible. I don't even know what the status of Will Rogers, Woody Marks is. I don't think it's much going to matter. Texas A&M, that front seven, they're going to push Mississippi State around all night. I think A&M also offensively with Max Johnson should be able to have some success. And I do think at home, Texas A&M, I think they handle Mississippi State. I think they'll win, and they'll win big as Jimbo Fisher continues to fight for his future in College Station. Guys, that being said, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll go ahead and get into your questions, your comments, your voicemails in our Q&A, our daily mailbag segment, if you will. Guys, all that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho, Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Wednesday, November the 8th, 2023, and we have entered our daily mailbag segment. Taking your questions, your comments, and your voicemails at 843-790-3377. Let me try that again. 843-790-3377, guys. We'd love to hear from you. Sometimes my mouth moves faster than my brain. It happens. Let's see. Cocky Twan asking about the Savell Newton stuff. Cocky Twan loves to ask about the drama that happens on social media. Savell and I are good, Cocky Twan. I mean, listen, it really isn't all that serious when it comes to social media. I said something about Spurrier. He said to shut the hell up about it. Savell and I are good buddies. We're good buddies. We text back and forth and chat and conversate. So it ain't no big deal, man. It really isn't. And I like I told Savell, I'd tell him in person. I say it here. I get it, man. And that's, Savell was one of my first big interviews I did on my show. And I loved how honest he was. You know what I mean? Like, I loved how honest Savell was about his time at South Carolina. But, I mean, I'd give him this feedback, guys. It's like I've told you all before. Like, holding a grudge only hurts the person with the grudge. And I think Savell's a great dude, man. He's doing great things in life. But, like, dude, you harboring resentment and negative energy is only hurting you. Like, it's only hurting you. So you need to forgive the other party. You need to forgive yourself. You cannot live a peaceful, fulfilled, happy life harboring hate and resentment and anything. You can't do it. So that's that would be my feedback. That would be my feedback to. So that would be my feedback to Savell. Either way, guys, would love to hear from you. A lot of people responding to the wide receivers a push. Again, I know how good Xavier Legette is. Who else does South Carolina have, guys? Who else? Who else? I mean, again, you can look at Nick Harbor, but I mean, he's not a weekly contributor. And then I look at Will Shepherd and Jaden McGowan. That's why it's a push. I'm not giving Vandy the nod, but they've got two standout guys. South Carolina has one. And South Carolina's one is better than those two, but they've only got one. It's very simple. I think it's just South Carolina fans, a lot of South Carolina fans, they obviously don't watch Vandy at all. They're not familiar with Vandy. They don't keep up with Vandy. So they don't know how good Will Shepherd and Jaden McGowan are, which is fine. But just say you don't watch ball. Just say you don't. It's fine. It's all good. Chase Floyd, just remembered you started at 9. Hey, all good, man. I appreciate you taking the time to jump in here. Let's see. We'll get into your questions here. There are some questions. John Edward, could Vandy finish last in the SEC? I mean, John Edward, it'd be surprising if they didn't finish last in the SEC. Todd Smith, what's going on, man? Appreciate you tuning in. Let's see. Todd Smith says, I found some joy. John Edward says, if it's a weekly thing, don't make a bigger deal about it every week. John Edward, all I'm doing is posting a clip. That's it. That's it, John Edward. I mean, listen, John Edward, I know how you're wired, John Edward. You're going to defend Shane Beamer to a fault no matter what's said. That's totally fine. But at least be honest and transparent about that. At least. That's who you are. I get it. And I'm not like, guys, I didn't even post the clip from yesterday that Shane Beamer, like going in the presser saying that, you know, if you left the game miserable, then yes, some of you need to find some joy. I didn't post the clip because I didn't want to. Because guys, it becomes exhausting to highlight everything that Shane Beamer says in a presser that is petty or whatever it is. Like, I'd rather just talk ball. I really would. I'd rather talk ball. So, you know, but it ain't my fault Shane Beamer saying things that go viral. You know, it's not. It's not my fault. You know. Let's see. Big Wash, we're good on linebackers. They just need to grow up. Well, Big Wash, you don't have time for guys to grow up, do you? That's why you need to go to the portal and get some guys who can contribute right now. They need to have some guys next year that are ready to go. Again, you're not going to get 4 or 5 years to develop guys. You need to go out to the portal and get some guys who are ready to go. I know you got Wendell Gregory coming in. You say Johnson. I don't know which. I don't know. I don't have the list of signees or recruits or whatever pulled up in front of me. But they got to get linebacker shored up, man. It's in a rough spot. So, Big Wash, our 2 best wide receivers are better than Vandy's 2 best receivers any day. So, Chris, you're not right on that. Who is South Carolina's number 2 wide receiver? Who is it? That's what I'm saying. It's about who you have available right now. I know if Juice Wells was healthy, this ain't even a conversation, but like, he's not. South Carolina has Xavier Legette. Who do they have besides that? Who is their second? Who is wide receiver 2 right now? I'm genuinely asking. Is it Amarian Brown? Is it Nick Harbor? I mean, it's crazy. It's so funny. It's so funny doing the position unit comparison stuff because fans cannot give the opponent. Fans can't give the opponent a shred of credit. It's so funny to watch. Some fans can't give the opponent a shred of credit. I mean, I said it's a push. Again, I'm not saying Vandy has the advantage, but South Carolina has Xavier Legette, who's a fantastic player. Vandy has Will Shepherd, who's a really, really good player, and Jaden McGowan, who's a really, really good player. Those 2 guys equate to one a Legette. It's a push. Because the rest of the rooms, beyond Xavier Legette, guys, South Carolina's wide receiver room is below average. It just is. It is. I mean, Nick Harbor's a wildly talented player, but he's not a great wide receiver right now. He's not a great receiver right now. And then Amarian Brown just kind of there. Eddie Lewis is just kind of there. Luke Doty's a non-factor. I mean, Omega Blake is just kind of there. I mean, yeah. So I think it's easily a push. I think it's easily a push. Jeff Gullidge, take the garnet glasses off, he says. Which program's doing better right now, Florida or South Carolina? Also still can't beat Missouri. Or still can't be Missouri has a better program than us. Jeff, that ship has sailed. Mizzou's got a far better program than South Carolina. It's not even close. I don't know how any Gamecock fan could argue otherwise. I mean, maybe Mizzou doesn't recruit to the level South Carolina does, but whatever they do once they get there, they do a far better job. Bottom line. Again, you cannot sit there. You can't sit there and lose to someone 5 years in a row and still say, well, our program's still better than theirs. You just can't do that. And especially this year where, coming in this year, people say, well, we lost to Mizzou, but, we were the better team and they shouldn't have beat us. They whooped your ass this year. I mean, they whooped your ass. So there ain't no debate. There's no debate this year. No debate in the slightest. Either way, guys, 843-790-3377. Fun thing, guys. Fun thing that came up yesterday. Our good friend J.D. Piquel on 3. And obviously, he's a college football guy. That's what he does for a living. He talks college football year-round, 24/7, 365. But he put up a post that says college basketball season doesn't begin until March. And I don't agree with that, but I'll ask you all, when does college basketball season begin? Because you might notice, guys, I didn't do a post-game reaction video to the South Carolina USC Upstate game. We didn't spend a ton of time yesterday talking about the game, breaking it down. And when I first started this business and started creating content, it was all just, solely focused South Carolina. We never talked any SEC stuff. I sort of felt an obligation to break down every single game, to dissect every game, preview every game, cover every game, recap every game. And as I've grown and evolved, and I've just realized, that's not really why people watch this show. People watch this show to be entertained, whatever the subject matter may be. Be entertained by the most entertaining subjects of that day. So it is a fair question. When does basketball season, I guess not when does it start, but when does it register for you? When does it matter? You know what I mean? When do you start to pay a lot of attention? And guys, I'm going to be totally transparent with you. Before my business, before TSUS, I watched every single football game always, ever. That's goes without saying, right? But I was a very casual basketball watcher. Very casual. Very, very casual. I mean, I would, it would not bother. Let me just put it this way. It wouldn't bother me to miss a South Carolina basketball game. And part of the reason was because South Carolina basketball has never really been worth a damn to make it appointment TV. Now, growing up, I mean, my first basketball teams I was a fan of, Carlos Powell, Ronaldo Balkman was my favorite player, Torrance Kinsey, Zam Frederick, the list goes on and on. The back-to-back NITs, wasn't in 04 and 05, I believe. Good times. But, when it comes to basketball content for us, I don't think basketball content is going to lead the show until January. I'll be honest with you. It's just, guys, it's we can be honest about it, right? We can just be honest about it. I enjoy it, and I'm excited to get more dive into college basketball more, talking the entire SEC and seeing good basketball be played. And I'm curious to see how Lamont's team fares in year 2, but I think it's a curious thing. Are you someone that, because it's wild how much less of a draw there is from football to basketball. It's significant. It's significant. So It is significant. Let's see. John Eber says college basketball starts for me when the season starts. Jeff Golich says in April when it ends. I mean, admittedly, and I've said this many times, Jeff. Like I'm a far bigger baseball guy than I am basketball. Far bigger baseball guy. It's just who I am. It's just how I'm wired. Bottom line. Yeah. So, but I mean, I'd love to see South Carolina. I'd love to see South Carolina be good at basketball. It'd be fun. I mean, I think that's my biggest thing, guys. Is like watching good basketball is really, really fun. Watching bad basketball is miserable. Miserable. Big Wash says most teams only have 2 guys at most that can really hurt you, not 3. And to push that narrative is a little far-fetched. I don't know if you're talking to me, Big Wash, but if you are, I don't really know what you mean. I'm going to assume you're not talking to me because I don't know. I didn't really make that point, I guess. But again, when I compare the receivers, South Carolina has Xavier Legette, and then who? Vanderbilt has Will Shepherd and Jaden McGowan, and then, kind of it falls off. They've got 2, you've got 1. Your 1's better than either of their 2, but their 2 equals your 1. It's that simple. It's very, very simple. It's not difficult. It's not difficult math. Zach says South Carolina's program is in better shape than Florida. Not by much, though. That's a great question, Zach. Whose program is in better shape? I guess my follow-up question to that, Zach, though, is like when we're talking better shape for what? Better shape for what? Like to compete in the SEC? To win the SEC? What is it in better shape to do? I don't know. I mean, I want to say South Carolina's program is in better shape. But admittedly, guys, you know what? Actually, no. I'm going to stand on business here. I think Florida's program's in better shape. I really do, because you look at it. Number 1, Billy Napier's 2-0 against Shane Beamer. That's first off. Number 2, look at what Florida's doing in recruiting. Number 3, Florida's got history and tradition and things like that to help boost them. I mean, and I'll ask you this. If you say South Carolina's program is in better shape than Florida's, like, what do you point to that says that? You can only hang your hat on the Tennessee and Clemson games of last year for so long. You can now listen. Carolina finishes 6-6. If they win out, Florida goes 5-7. Maybe then I'll give it to you. Maybe it's an even push. Maybe South Carolina slightly ahead, but I don't know. I don't know that I say that South Carolina. And that's the thing, guys. Like, you have to beat a program like that to be considered ahead of them. You have to beat them. Guys, we got a voicemail. Let's jump to the voicemail line here.
Hey, man, what you think about the girls' basketball team this year?
Appreciate the call. Appreciate the question. What do I think about the women's basketball team this year? I mean, I think they're very, very good. they're supremely talented. I mean, for Dawn, it's reload, not rebuild, obviously. The new freshman they have is obviously made waves in that first game. And I mean, guys, I think South Carolina at absolute worst, South Carolina is an Elite 8 team at worst. At worst. So, I mean, listen, I said this last year, and I'll say it again. And it's meant with all respect. It's literally a compliment. Being a fan of South Carolina women's basketball right now. It's like being a fan of the Patriots when Tom Brady was quarterback, where it's like the regular season's cool. It's fun. It's cool to beat up on people. But South Carolina season doesn't really start until the Sweet 16. It really doesn't, guys. I mean, because for South Carolina, it's if you don't win the national title, look at last year. Guys, what do you remember about last year? About the women's basketball season? I remember South Carolina dragging LSU. That was a fun game. But, like, the Gamecocks didn't win at all. Would you consider the season a success? I mean, I'm not going to say it was a failure, but, I mean, you didn't achieve the goal. So that's how you're judged now. So it's like, I mean, everything you do in the regular season's cool and everything. Like, it's whatever. Like, it's all just a warm-up for the part that really matters. So, in the meantime, that's a luxury. I would say don't take it for granted. When you have a team like that, that's a luxury. But that's where you are. And again, it feels good to be in that position. I'd love to be a South Carolina football fan where you say, yeah, we're just going to kill everybody and we're a shoe-in for the playoff, and that's what we're worried about. I'd love nothing more, guys. I'd love nothing more. Cocky Twine says, I think Juice is ready to go. It's something fishy with that situation. Cocky Twine, dude, you know, I hate to speculate on it like that. Like, I hate to speculate and say he's healthy and not playing, but, like, something's off with that. Something's off. Because listen to Shane. There's a reason I posted the clip of it yesterday. Listen to Shane Beamer talk about Juice Wells. The dude's been day-to-day for a month. And when you hear, like, you know, Juice, he wants to get out there. It'll depend on where he's at mentally, where he's at physically. What do you mean where he's at mentally? Like, mentally, like, does he want to play or not? Something about that situation, something's weird about that. No doubt. So, something is weird about that. We don't know the full story. Bottom line is we don't know the full story about the Juice Wells thing. And it's such a shame, guys, because it has been straight bullshit regarding Juice Wells since the preseason. It's been straight bullshit. It's been straight nonsense. And that's unfortunate. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll keep the convo rolling, taking your questions, comments, voicemails, and more here on this Wednesday. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home. Call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, They are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho, Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Wednesday, November the 8th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Let's just get right back into the conversation. We do have a voicemail that was left over the break, so we'll jump into this.
Okay, next year, do you think that we will be in the same position as we are this year in football? And what is your biggest upset about this year as a football team?
Okay, so I think that South Carolina will be in the same position next year as they're in this year. Well, first off, I hope not. I genuinely hope not. But this is a great question. And the toughest thing about this is, you know, it's never been more difficult to project what a season, what a team's going to look like because of the transfer portal. It's never been more difficult. I mean, who knows, guys? South Carolina look at like what Florida State did. Look at what Ole Miss has done. Like, this is a football team that could add 4 or 5 pieces in the portal and just the whole perception completely change, right? Like, you know, we're all convinced that Lenora Sellers is the next quarterback. They could go out to the portal and get a quarterback, guys. Like, you just never know. You just never, ever know. That being said, unless South Carolina goes out and gets some just really significant game changers, right? Because the biggest problem is offensive line. The line of scrimmage is the biggest problem. And there's not typically a lot of guys available to boost that. Granted, there will be some, and you need to go get them, but I think when you look at the football team, you look way too far ahead. A lot of the question marks that you've had this year, they're going to be questions next year. Offensive line is going to be a concern. Secondary is going to be a concern. I mean, I think defensive front, yet again, is going to be a concern. Linebacker will be a concern. You lose Spencer Rattler. So it's like, is this offense really going to be better without Spencer Rattler? I think Lenora Sellers has got all the potential in the world, but he hadn't been in the fire, guys. He hadn't taken the bullets. So, I mean, and then you look at the schedule. Like, realistically, guys, and I mean, people don't want to hear it, just right now, I mean, I think you're looking at, guys, year one of Lenora Sellers with that schedule. I know the non-conference is laughable. Don't get me wrong. There should be 3 automatic wins. Then you got Vandy. There should be 4 wins in there, no doubt. I mean, I think you're looking at 8 wins probably being the ceiling again next year, to where if it all clicks, 7-5 being the goal, 6-6 being, your goal is to get to 6-6 to make a bowl game with Lenora Sellers. Nobody wants to hear that, but I mean, think about it, guys. Like, that's a huge loss to lose Spencer Rattler. Like, again, we're all optimistic that Lenora Sellers is going to be it, but we just don't know. You just don't know. And I mean, I don't think it's fair to expect him to be everything Spencer Rattler's been this year. I don't think that's fair, right? I don't know that offensive line is going to get fixed in 1 year, right? I mean, Big Tree Babalade and Trovon Bowe will be really good. Jatavia Shivers, these guys who've been thrust in the fire, they'll be really good. But I mean, you're probably going to be playing young guys yet again. Cam Pringle, Josiah Thompson, Case and Henry will be back. But I mean, as bad as the O-line's been this year, they could make significant improvements and still not be a great offensive line. They could be, a little bit middle of the pack or maybe a little bit lower, which would be a huge jump. But, I mean, I think having a more successful season, especially if South Carolina finishes 4-8 or 5-7, I mean, I think it's absolutely doable. I think it's a must. I mean, guys, it's again, it's really difficult to project that far ahead, but yeah, I mean, I think South Carolina more than likely is going to be fighting for bowl eligibility next year. Yeah. I mean, we're going to find out, I think, later this month how the schedule actually shakes out. But I mean, it's a brutal schedule, guys. You got to go to Oklahoma. You got to go to Alabama. You got to go to Kentucky. You play LSU. You play Ole Miss. You play Texas A&M. Thank God you have Vandy. But I mean, it's a gauntlet, dude. It's a freaking gauntlet. It's a gauntlet. So, let's see. Timothy says, do you think South Carolina is going to beat Clemson this year? Well, Timothy, I'll drop my prediction the week of the game. I mean, I think it's a favorable position for South Carolina, no doubt. I think it's a favorable position. I don't know. Clemson just beat Notre Dame. Who knows, man? That's going to be a wild game. It's going to be I'm excited for it just from the standpoint of it's a coin flip. Like, who knows? Who knows? Ruben Nation, if there's something fishy and he's healthy and with NIL, he'll be okay. If there's something fishy and he's healthy and with the NIL he's getting, he'll be a poster child as why you don't overpay these kids. EJ Reed, when will Beamer's seat start to warm up? 90% of coaching is recruiting. EJ, do you think that Beamer's seat hasn't warmed up this year? I mean, it's not hot by any stretch, but I mean, it's gotten warmer. There's no question it's gotten warmer. And I mean, if they miss a bowl game next year, I think his seat, he will be one of the coaches talked about on the hot seat going into 2025. Absolutely. Because guys, again, you just don't get more than 5 years. You just don't. Not in today's college football. You just don't. You just do not. There's so much money involved. People want to win. They want to win now. They don't want to win 10 years from now. So I think the seat has actually warmed up this year. I really do. I think the seats warmed up a little bit this year. And I mean, guys, that's the biggest thing, like why we talk about the press conferences and stuff. Because it's like, at the end of the day, is it the biggest problem? Is it the biggest problem? No, it's not. But I was tuned in yesterday. Shout out to the guys over at the Fan Upstate. I was tuned in. It was their guest. It was their guest host. Mark Ryan wasn't on, but it was the Carlos guy and Diesel, right? And Diesel, I thought they talked about Shane Beamer's comments at his presser yesterday. And I'm going to paraphrase, obviously, but I thought Diesel did a great job just talking about why, for the people that say that this means nothing, there's no big deal. Well, what happens is this, like, what you can't deny is that Beamer is really, really defensive and comes off at times snarky. At times he comes off like a jerk. And what happens is this, like, you build a reputation of now when people are watching you, they are taking everything you're saying in that tone because they believe that's the tone you're speaking in. And that's not fair. That's not fair, but it is the reality. So, like, my point of that is this, like, the losing has been the number one problem this year. But guys, I don't think Shane Beamer's done himself any favors. I don't think he's made more friends this season. I think he's made more enemies. I really do. And I hate to say that, but I really do. Like, it just, I mean, the pressers don't mean a whole lot until you start losing, and then they mean everything, it seems like. I don't know. Here we go. John Rice says, at this point, it feels like there's a better chance we make a bowl game this year than next year. John, I don't know. I mean, maybe, I don't know, man. So much. It's tough to, I take it this. It's tough to project, John, because so much can change. But I mean, John, listen, I made this point literally, 2 weeks ago after the Texas A&M game that, dude, I hate to play spoiler for you all, but I mean, until South Carolina football shows me that it's something that it's not, I can all but guarantee you I'm not going into next season saying, man, South Carolina's the breakout team. They're going to go 10-2 or 9-3. South Carolina's a 6-6 program till proven otherwise. The wins over Tennessee and Clemson last year made a lot of us lose perspective of what Carolina was. I mean, I was chastised for picking 7-5. Chastised. Run through the ringer for picking 7-5. So, to your point, John, I think the goal next season, the way I look at it, big picture, hey, just make a bowl game. First-year quarterback, still have questions, make a bowl game. That's make a bowl game. You get to a bowl game in the first year, Lenora Sellers, I think you have to chalk that up as somewhat of a win. Brewer Nation, I got a hot take question for you. With as much crap as Beamer's took this season and things looking iffy, if Virginia Tech fires Pry and offers Beamer, do you think now might be a good time to go? Nah, I don't think so, Brewer Nation. I don't think that's a – I mean, I get what you're saying, right, because of his dad. I don't think so. I don't think so, Brewer Nation. I just – that would stun me. That would stun me for sure. That would absolutely stun me. Timothy Farmer, I think South Carolina is going to beat Vanderbilt on Saturday. That's a very fair prediction, my friend. To your point, the Brewer Nation, I think what's more likely, and again, this year hasn't helped Beamer, but what has to concern you about a guy like Beamer, for example, is we all know, right, that South Carolina's NIL situation is not the greatest. I mean, schools are going to begin to use NIL as a bargaining chip, right? Like, hey, come coach at our school. We have this, this, and this. And also, we got a bunch of money in NIL. We got a bunch of NIL opportunities to help you recruit. Like, that's going to become a thing, is it not? Like, I mean, I'm sure coaches are going to look at it and say, man, like I'm 13th in the SEC in NIL. I can go somewhere else and be 4th in NIL. Like, yeah, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And I think that's going to help schools scoop up coaches. So, I mean, dude, NIL is the wild, wild west, man. I mean, you heard Washington State's head coach. In case you guys missed this, Washington State's head coach, after their game over the weekend, just went publicly and made it very well known the situation. He says, quote, "The facts are Washington State, we're way behind. We're not even competitive in some aspects of the NIL." I mean, listen, guys, I'll tell you this. Here's what NIL has done. From college football will never lose its luster in regards to like the national viewpoint or even the conference-wide viewpoint. Like those who just love the game and love the sport and love to watch, you're going to love to watch it forever and ever and ever because you're not solely attached to who wins. At the regional level and for diehards of their favorite teams, NIL has all but ruined college football to a degree. Because, for example, South Carolina, when NIL was introduced, it was like, man, look at all these great ways we can help the team win. It's just another way that South Carolina can separate themselves and gives them a boost. And yeah. And guys, I'd argue the NIL is just another issue that South Carolina football has to overcome. It's another thing they've got to fight. Because guess what? The Gamecocks don't have the bankroll of a lot of other schools in the SEC. Why is that? I don't know. I really don't genuinely know. But it's the reality. So from the national level, from the conference-wide level, hey, NIL's cool, man. Glad guys are getting compensated. But when your heart is invested in your favorite team and you're a South Carolina, you're a Mississippi State, you're a Kentucky, you're a lower tier, yeah, it makes life really difficult on you. It makes life tough. And I don't know how that gets quote unquote fixed because the rich are going to get richer. Now it's helping parity. I'm not saying it's not. It's helping parity. The portal and NIL is doing that. It is because, not all of the great players are going to go to one school now, right? They don't have a monopoly on the best talent, but it's undoubtedly making life more difficult on a school like South Carolina. There's no question. There's no question. So, it's the landscape is very, very interesting for sure. Timothy Farmer, I think South Carolina is going to win against Vanderbilt 50-7. Spurs up, go Cox. I would love that. That result will bring me a lot of joy. That would bring me a ton of joy. EJ Reed, I don't think Beamer will make it past year 5. With that being said, will Carolina ever attract a big-name coach on the level of Spurrier again? EJ, they'd have to open up the checkbook. That's the biggest thing. They just have to open up the checkbook. Big Wash says NIL was created for the big boys to keep small fries out so they don't threaten the power structure. How correct is Big Wash there? Yeah, I mean, he says, and they keep getting richer. Rich get richer, he says. To the TDC Questions channel we go. Brandon M., the chat is dead, he says. The chat on YouTube is great. The chat on YouTube is great. Appreciate you all tuning in. Let's see. Ruben Nation says, EJ, if Beamer's gone after next year, Jamie Chadwell should be the first call. Isn't it like, just take a moment and stop. Isn't it crazy, guys, that we're having this conversation? It's wild to me. It's wild to me that we're talking about this convo. I mean, again, though, I'd ask you guys, a couple things need to be established. What is no matter who the coach is, let's say a new coach is hired. When Shane Beamer was hired, what was the goal and expectation for him? By year 5, by year 3, by year 4, by year 5, what was the expectation? Because I remember saying that when Beamer was hired, hey, first 5 years, first 5 years, as long as he's making bowl games on a year-in, year-out basis, you don't have to be winning 10 games. But as long as you're staying at that 6-6 or better mark, that's success. Because you're doing enough to generate positive momentum in recruiting and build, which is where championships or good football is won. Now, has the transfer portal changed or affected my philosophy on that? Probably. 5 years is a long time in college football now with what the transfer portal has done. And I think also, too, what doesn't help is a situation like Tennessee, where Shane Beamer and Josh Heupel are hired at the same time. And Tennessee football is in a much different place than South Carolina is. So let's say they win. Like, I think winning out this year, going to 6-6, getting to 6-6 would be massive. Would be massive. You can't overstate how big of a deal that would be. You cannot overstate how big of a deal that would be. Then I think next year, guys, I mean, let's just say this. Let's say you go 6-6 this year. Let's say you go 6-6 next year. You make a bowl game again. Shane Beamer's getting to 2025. What does he have to do in 2025 to remain the head coach? And I don't think that's I think there's gray area there, because it's like, how does it look? Is there progression? You know, typically these things play themselves out. I think Beamer's going to get till 2025 at minimum. I do. I think he's going to get till 2025. Guys, they could finish 5-7 this year. I think they could go 5-7 next year. I think he's going to get till 2025. I'd just be stunned. I'd be stunned that I'd be stunned if that wasn't the case. Final comment here. Eric says, you're right about one thing. Last year's wins over Tennessee and Clemson is the reason we're even having that conversation. Fans expecting 10-win seasons this year in shock. Eric, to your point, man. To your point. I mean, you do make a good point. I don't know that it's fans' faults for, you know, having that hype and excitement after the Tennessee and Clemson wins, but you are right that it set some wildly unrealistic expectations. Guys, that being said, we've hit 11 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. Appreciate you all tuning in. You're on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you get notifications when we go live, when we drop new video content as well. Also, subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can check us out at the Spurs Up Show there. And guys, stay tuned to social media content bleeding out of the eyeballs as always. Guys, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. And we will talk to you all tomorrow.